We are doing this deep dive today specifically for you, the learner. I mean, we know exactly how you operate.
Right, you don't just want a surface-level summary of, like, some new gadget on the market.
Exactly. You want to tear it apart. You want to look at the underlying mechanics and truly understand how the electrons flow.
You're looking for that deep mastery of the topic.
Yeah. And today's topic, well, it starts with a pretty universal frustration. You know that feeling when you go out to the mailbox?
Oh, I know this feeling.
Right. You pull out that stack of letters and you see that envelope from the utility company. It just has that distinct, slightly ominous look to it.
Like they're already charging you just to open it.
Seriously. So you open it up and your eyes immediately dart to that bold number at the bottom of the page. And lately, it feels like that number just keeps creeping up, you know?
Regardless of what you do inside the house.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if you've been religiously turning off the lights in empty rooms or, like, setting the thermostat just a little closer to uncomfortable. We're all tethered to this massive, aging power grid.
And it really feels like we just have to accept whatever rate hikes come our way. You just pay the bill.
But a concept crossed my desk recently that honestly sounds completely counterintuitive. It's about fighting back.
But not in the traditional way.
That's right.
Not by spending tens of thousands of dollars on a massive rooftop solar installation.
No, not at all. This is about simply plugging a DIY solar power plant into a regular old wall outlet.
Which, I mean, it really does sound like science fiction. Or perhaps, a late-night infomercial scam.
It totally does.
Because the prevailing wisdom for decades has been that generating residential power requires teams of electricians.
Oh, yeah, and building permits, structural engineering reports for your roof.
Right, plus a mountain of paperwork with a local utility company.
Yeah.
So the idea that you could bypass all of that infrastructure.
Just skip it entirely.
Yeah, and simply plug a solar panel into the same outdoor receptacle where you plug in your electric weed whacker.
Yeah.
It challenges literally everything we assume about how home electricity works.
I am bringing a lot of skepticism to the table today. I mean, I have to.
Which is healthy. You need to with claims like this.
Yes, definitely. In fact, I'm analyzing the source material we have today, which it reviews these cutting-edge plug-and-play systems.
Specifically looking at equipment from companies like Craftstrom Solar and Mango Power.
Right. And I'm looking at this from 4 distinct perspectives. First, with a journalist's eye. I see these aggressive marketing claims of, legal in all 50 states.
And your immediate instinct is to look for the regulatory catch.
Oh, absolutely. Second, I'm leaning on my engineering background. My brain is just itching to understand the actual physical mechanics of backfeeding the grid safely.
It's a complex process to do without blowing something up.
Exactly. Third, thinking purely as a businessman, I am ready to ruthlessly calculate the actual return on investment here. Is it better than traditional solar?
The numbers have to make sense.
They really do. And finally, as a parent of 2 kids, my absolute top priorities are avoiding electrical fires.
Yeah, safety first, always.
Right, safety, and ensuring we have emergency power when the neighborhood goes dark. So I want to figure out with you if this is the ultimate shortcut to home energy self-sufficiency.
Or just a really, really expensive way to melt the wiring in your garage.
Exactly.
Well, that multi-lens approach is essential for a topic like this. I mean, we aren't just reviewing a consumer electronics product today.
No, it feels much bigger than that.
It is. We are examining a fundamental structural shift in how everyday people interact with the global energy grid.
Wow. Okay.
We're moving from a paradigm where the homeowner is strictly a consumer, at the end of a one-way street.
Right, just taking what the utility gives us.
Yeah, to a model where the home actually becomes an active participating node in a decentralized power network.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can evaluate the whole decentralized future thing, we have to solve the central mystery that honestly breaks most people's brains.
The physics of the plug.
Yes. How can power generated outside on a sunny patio flow backwards through a standard 120-volt outlet?
And then travel all the way into the main breaker panel to actually power the house.
Right. Because we are taught from childhood, usually with those little plastic safety covers, that the outlet is where electricity comes out, never in.
It is a deeply ingrained mental model. I mean, people tend to visualize electrical outlets like plumbing fixtures.
Like a faucet.
Exactly. Water only comes out of a faucet.
Yeah.
It never flows backward into the pipes. But electrical wires inside your house are not plumbing lines.
They don't have one-way valves.
No, they don't. The copper wire inside your walls absolutely does not care about the direction of the electrical flow. It is merely a conductive pathway.
Okay, so the wire itself is just a dumb pipe.
Exactly. The breakthrough that makes plug-and-play solar possible doesn't happen in the household wiring at all. It happens outside,
Out by the panels.
right, in a highly sophisticated piece of hardware attached to the solar panels, which is called a microinverter.
So solar panels naturally produce direct current or DC power, right?
Right. Raw DC power.
And that raw energy is completely useless for the alternating current, the AC appliances, running inside our homes.
Right. Your TV can't run on DC power.
So there has to be a translation process happening out there.
The microinverter's primary job is that translation. It takes the raw, fluctuating DC power generated by the sun hitting the photovoltaic cells, and it converts it into smooth AC power.
Okay, but it has to be more than just simple conversion, right? To push it backward.
Oh, it goes far beyond simple conversion.
Hmm.
The AC power it generates has to flawlessly synchronize with the grid's exact frequency.
Which in North America is 60 hertz, right?
Exactly, 60 hertz. And it has to match the grid's exact voltage. So the microinverter is constantly monitoring the grid, matching the rhythm of the sine wave perfectly.
It's like double Dutch jump rope. It has to match the rhythm before it jumps in.
That's a great analogy. And once it matches that rhythm, it implements a very clever manipulation to force the electricity to flow into your house.
Because otherwise it would just sit dormant at the outlet.
Right. It has to create a push.
Okay, so putting on my engineer hat, to push power upstream, you have to create a differential.
Yes, a voltage differential.
I am picturing a fluid dynamics scenario here. Imagine you have a main water line from the city feeding your house.
Okay, I'm with you.
And the city is providing a constant pressure of, let's say, 50 psi.
Standard pressure.
Right. Now, if you connect your own secondary water pump into your home's internal plumbing, and you configure your pump to push water at a slightly higher pressure.
Let's say 52 psi.
Exactly, 52 psi. When you go to turn on the kitchen sink or the shower, those fixtures are naturally going to draw water from your high-pressure pump first, right?
Because fluids always follow the path of least resistance.
Yes. The higher pressure wins.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the exact mechanism at play here. The microinverter applies that principle to electron flow.
So it bumps up the pressure.
Yes, it subtly increases its output voltage by just a tiny fraction. We're talking perhaps a tenth of a volt above whatever the grid's baseline voltage happens to be at that specific millisecond.
Oh, wow, just a tenth of a volt. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes, because electricity follows the path of least resistance. The active loads in your house, like your refrigerator compressor, your television, your LED lights, they intuitively consume this slightly higher voltage solar power first.
They essentially siphon off the solar production before drawing any of the slightly lower voltage power from the massive utility grid outside.
Exactly. They drink from your 52 psi pump before they touch the city's 50 psi line.
And what's wild is that the homeowner never notices a thing. Like the lights don't flicker,
The TV doesn't buzz.
the microwave doesn't beep. The transition happens entirely behind the scenes at the literal speed of light.
It is a continuous high-tech synchronization happening millions of times a second.
Millions of times a second. That's hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah, the broader utility grid acts as a massive buffer, absorbing any fluctuations, while your microinverter gently pushes slightly higher pressure electrons into your home's local copper network.
The underlying physics are surprisingly elegant, honestly.
They really are.
The copper wires act as a two-way street, and the microinverter uses just a slight voltage bump to dictate the direction of traffic.
That's a perfect summary.
So, with that fundamental mechanism established, let's examine the actual physical gear required to pull this off. I mean, when a homeowner orders one of these kits online, what does the hardware arsenal actually look like?
Well, the source material specifically reviews an entry-level 800-watt kit from Craftstrom.
Right, let's talk about that Craftstrom kit.
The hardware is quite sophisticated. It moves well beyond traditional, flimsy hobbyist components. The Craftstrom kit utilizes what they describe as semi-flexible bifacial panels
Okay, wait, I paused when I read the term semi-flexible.
because it sounds a bit contradictory.
Yeah. Usually when we talk about flexible solar panels, we're referring to those flimsy, thin film roll-up mats you might strap to a backpack for a camping trip.
Right, the really soft ones.
But these are fundamentally different. The sources say they feature a rigid metal frame around the perimeter.
Which provides the necessary structural integrity.
Exactly. But the actual photovoltaic surface itself has a slight degree of bendability to it.
It represents a really smart hybrid engineering approach.
How so?
Well, you gain the durability and mounting stability of a traditional rigid glass panel. And that is absolutely necessary if this is going to be a permanent or semi-permanent fixture in a backyard facing heavy winds.
Right, you don't want it blowing away or snapping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you get that stability without the massive weight penalty of thick tempered glass.
Oh, so they're lighter and easier to set up by yourself.
Much easier.
Yeah.
But the more critical feature, honestly, is that they are bifacial.
Meaning they collect sunlight on both the front face and the back side?
Yes, both sides are active.
From a business and efficiency standpoint, that sounds like an incredibly smart way to squeeze extra return out of the exact same square footage. But honestly, how much usable energy can the back of a panel really generate? It's facing the ground.
The contribution can actually be substantial, but it is heavily dependent on the specific deployment environment.
Okay, so where you put it matters.
Immensely. By capturing ambient reflected sunlight bouncing off the ground, the system maximizes total energy production. It can actually push the output beyond the panel's standard face value rating.
So an 800-watt kit might pull more than 800 under the right conditions.
If the conditions are perfect, yes. If a homeowner sets these up on a highly reflective surface, such as a white concrete patio or a light-colored flat roof,
What about snow?
especially an area blanketed in winter snow, the albedo effect bounces a tremendous amount of light back up into the underside of the panel.
That makes total sense. Snow is practically a mirror.
To capitalize on this, the kits ship with adjustable racking systems. This allows the user to angle the panels optimally for their specific geographic latitude and to maximize that ground reflection.
So we have the bifacial panels mounted on adjustable racks, and those are feeding into the microinverters.
Correct.
Now, the 800-watt Craftstrom system uses two 350-watt microinverters.
Right, with each inverter managing 2 panels.
But the other source material, looking at a Mango Power Kit, highlights a different configuration. They use one dedicated microinverter for every single panel.
Yes, a 1-to-1 ratio.
Let me put my businessman hat on for a second here, because my instinct is to immediately look at manufacturing costs.
And you see a lot of expensive microinverters.
Exactly. Isn't assigning a full microinverter to every individual panel complete overkill? It just seems so much cheaper to use simple DC optimizers on each panel to handle, like, shading issues.
And then funnel it all down one wire.
Yeah, funnel all that raw DC power into one large central string inverter mounted on the wall of the garage. Wouldn't that dramatically lower the cost of the kit?
That is a very logical cost analysis question.
Yeah.
And traditionally, in large-scale professional rooftop installations, string inverters were the industry standard for exactly that economic reason.
Right, funneling everything to one central hub saved money.
It did. However, the landscape of global electronics manufacturing has experienced a massive shift in the last few years. Factories, particularly in overseas tech hubs, have become exceptionally efficient at mass-producing these smaller, miniaturized microinverters.
So the price dropped.
Plummeted. The economies of scale have driven the individual unit cost down so far that the financial gap between 4 separate microinverters versus 4 DC optimizers and 1 central string inverter.
It's negligible now.
It's practically a wash.
Interesting. But if the manufacturing cost is a wash, there must be a performance or reliability benefit to utilizing so many independent microinverters, right? Otherwise, why bother?
The primary benefit is redundancy.
Ah, redundancy.
Think about it. If you rely on a single central string inverter and that unit fails, your entire solar power plant is completely offline until you can source a replacement part and repair it.
You're dead in the water.
Completely. Utilizing panel-level or dual-panel microinverters builds inherent fail-safes into the architecture. It evokes the old engineering adage, 2 is 1 and 1 is none.
Right, so if you deploy 4 panels with 4 microinverters and one inverter suffers a catastrophic failure,
you still have 3 independent panels actively producing power for your home.
it effectively isolates the point of failure.
Exactly. It prevents a single component from compromising the entire system.
Buying resilience makes perfect sense, especially for a system that's literally exposed to the elements 24/7. And according to the reviewer in the source material, these specific microinverters are remarkably resilient.
They have to be.
They noted that even while baking in the high 90s and 100-plus degree July heat, the units ran flawlessly at maximum output.
Which is impressive for consumer electronics.
Very. The reviewer mentioned they get incredibly hot to the touch, like hot enough that you wouldn't want to leave your hand on the bare metal casing.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yet they never experienced thermal throttling or unexpected shutdowns.
Thermal management is a critical engineering hurdle for solar technology. I mean, consider the environment. The equipment is literally designed to sit in direct, blistering sunlight for decades.
It's a brutal environment.
It is. The internal components, the capacitors, the microprocessors, they all must meet rigorous industrial-grade specifications to survive those daily thermal expansion and contraction cycles.
Heating up every day, cooling down every night.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Additionally, modern microinverters integrate built-in Wi-Fi chips.
Oh, right, so they talk to an app.
Yes, this allows them to communicate operational data and temperature readings directly to a smartphone app.
Which eliminates the need for the homeowner to purchase and configure a separate, complicated communications gateway just to see if it's working.
It's all built in.
Okay, so we have the hardware humming outside, successfully syncing with the grid and pushing higher voltage electricity into the house.
It's doing its job.
But this brings up a massive, glaring concern. And putting my parent persona forward, I have to ask the absolute elephant in the room safety question.
I think I know where you're going with this.
What happens to this rogue electricity when the neighborhood utility grid crashes?
The blackout scenario.
Yes. Consider a scenario where a severe summer storm rolls through, a massive oak tree takes out the power lines down the street, and the entire block goes completely dark.
A total grid failure.
If my backyard panels are still sitting in the afternoon sun, happily producing power and pushing it backwards through my house wiring, am I unwittingly sending live electricity out to the street?
You have identified the single most critical safety hazard associated with any grid-tied solar system.
It sounds terrifying.
The nightmare scenario you were describing is known in the electrical industry as islanding.
Violent.
Islanding occurs when a localized solar array continues pumping live alternating current into a dead municipal grid during a widespread blackout.
And the danger there extends far beyond simply donating free electricity to my neighbor's dead refrigerators. Right?
Oh, far beyond. The real danger is to the utility workers actively trying to repair those lines.
The linemen.
Yes, it represents a lethal threat to utility linemen. We discussed earlier how transformers on utility poles step massive transmission voltage down to a usable 120 volts for your home.
Right.
Well, those transformers function entirely on the principle of magnetic induction.
Meaning they work in both directions.
Precisely. If your DIY solar setup pushes 120 volts backward out of your house, down your driveway, and into the secondary side of the neighborhood transformer,
Oh.
that transformer will indiscriminately step your 120 volts back up to tens of thousands of volts.
Oh.
It will send that lethal high voltage current rippling down the supposedly dead power lines.
So, a utility worker in a bucket truck.
A worker who has followed every protocol and firmly believes they are handling a de-energized safe wire could be subjected to a fatal electrocution.
That is a chilling thought. Truly, if I am deploying a DIY power plant in my backyard, I need an absolute ironclad guarantee that I won't be responsible for harming a utility worker.
Absolutely.
So how do these consumer plug-and-play kits prevent islanding? Can I trust them?
You can, because they rely on strict, hard-coded adherence to mandated safety protocols.
Built right in.
Yes. Specifically, rapid shutdown and anti-islanding algorithms programmed directly into the microinverter's firmware.
Does the user have to do anything?
The process requires zero human intervention. The microinverter constantly monitors that 60 hertz pulse of the utility grid.
The heartbeat we talked about.
Yes, and within a fraction of a single second of detecting that the grid power has dropped or become unstable, the microinverter severs its internal connection.
It just cuts the cord.
It completely shuts down and refuses to output a single watt of power.
Okay, so it just goes dead.
It transitions into a dormant listening mode, and it is physically incapable of rebooting until it detects stable, reliable grid power returning for a sustained period of time.
How long is sustained?
Usually around 5 minutes of clean grid power before it allows itself to wake up.
So the microinverter effectively uses the grid's sine wave as a necessary heartbeat to stay alive. If the grid's heart stops, the solar production instantly stops with it.
Exactly. It's a failsafe.
Okay, that addresses the external danger to the utility workers. That makes me feel better.
Good.
But let's look internally. Let's look at the fire risks hidden inside the walls of the house itself.
Ah, the wiring issue.
Right, because the instruction manuals for most plug-and-play kits strongly advise plugging the solar equipment into a dedicated circuit.
Meaning a circuit breaker that serves only that specific outlet and absolutely nothing else.
But let's be real. Realistically, the average homeowner does not have empty dedicated circuits conveniently located on their exterior walls.
No, rarely.
They have shared circuits, where the patio outlet might share a single breaker with the garage lighting or maybe a living room television.
The shared circuit scenario introduces a very complex variable.
I mean, think about it. If I have a solar system pumping 800 watts continuously into a shared circuit, and my teenager decides to plug a heavy appliance like an electric space heater or high-draw gaming PC into another outlet on that exact same circuit.
You're drawing a massive load.
Right. Isn't there a huge risk of overloading the internal copper wiring? Because the main breaker in the panel is designed to trip if too much power flows from the grid, right?
Correct.
But in this scenario, power is entering the wire from both directions. The grid is pushing from one end, the solar panels are pushing from the patio end, and the poor copper wire trapped in the middle is absorbing the total combined amperage.
And getting very hot.
The breaker back at the panel wouldn't see the full load, would it?
Your engineering instincts are spot on here. You have pinpointed the most insidious, hidden danger of retrofitting solar onto existing residential wiring.
So the breaker is basically useless here.
The main breaker panel is effectively blind to the power originating from the solar outlet at the far end of the circuit branch.
Wow.
Blind, because it cannot accurately measure the total cumulative current heating up the wire. It cannot reliably trip to prevent a fire.
That's terrifying.
It is. This specific limitation is why, historically, deploying plug-and-play solar without rewiring the house to include a dedicated circuit was considered a significant safety hazard by electricians.
Yet the source material specifically highlights a technological mitigation developed by Craftstrom to neutralize this exact threat.
They did. Craftstrom engineered a highly specialized solution to circumvent the shared circuit dilemma entirely.
What is it?
It's a dynamic smart breaker that physically plugs into the wall outlet, sitting directly between the household receptacle and your other devices.
Okay, let me see if I can deduce how this operates. It sounds like it acts as a digital traffic cop.
Essentially, yes.
So I plug this smart breaker into the wall outlet, and then I plug both my solar input cable and any other heavy household appliances into the smart breaker itself.
That is the physical configuration, yes.
Okay, so this gatekeeper device is actively monitoring the thermal limits and the real-time amperage draw of the shared circuit.
Right.
So if my teenager turns on that heavy space heater in the garage, the smart breaker registers the sudden spike in load.
It sees the draw jump up.
And then it uses its wireless connection to instantly communicate with the microinverters outside, commanding them to throttle down or completely halt solar production.
That's exactly how it works.
Wow. By dynamically tapping the brakes on the solar input, it guarantees that the total combined electrical load, the grid power plus the solar power, never exceeds the saved thermal carrying capacity of the copper wire inside my walls.
It provides the mathematical safety of a dedicated circuit without forcing you to hire an electrician to rip open your drywall and run new wire.
That is an incredibly elegant active safety net.
It really is. It digitizes the protection that was previously reliant on analog bimetallic strips inside traditional breaker panels.
Okay, so we have established that the microinverters utilize anti-islanding to protect the linemen outside, and these smart breakers protect the wiring inside.
The safety bases are covered.
This seamlessly brings my journalist persona to the forefront.
I was waiting for the journalist.
Because if the internal system is this intelligent and actively self-monitoring, how does it navigate the incredibly complex web of external utility regulations?
The legal side.
The promotional videos for these kits prominently feature the bold claim: DIY, plug-in solar power, legal in all 50 states.
Very catchy slogan.
And my journalistic skepticism immediately flares up when I hear sweeping legal claims like that. I mean, how is it possible to deploy a residential power generation system without obtaining local utility permission, pulling city permits, or signing convoluted grid tie agreements?
Especially since utility companies are notorious for fiercely protecting their regional monopoly.
Exactly. They don't just let you generate power willy-nilly.
Utility companies are indeed fiercely protective, and historically their regulations were absolute.
If you generated power, they knew.
Oh, if a homeowner pushed even a single watt of unauthorized, unmetered power back onto the municipal grid, the utility company would detect it.
And what would they do?
They'd issue a harsh warning letter, threaten to disconnect the home's electrical service entirely, or demand the homeowner submit to an expensive, months-long permitting and grid tie evaluation process.
So how are these companies claiming it's legal everywhere?
The sweeping marketing claim of being legal in all 50 states rests entirely on a technological capability known as zero export.
Zero export. Okay, interpreted literally. That means ensuring not a single stray electron ever leaves my property line.
That is the fundamental premise. The utility meter mounted on the side of your house represents a jurisdictional border.
Okay.
If you do not export power across that border and into their grid, the utility company generally has zero regulatory authority to dictate or restrict how you generate and consume power behind your own meter.
Wait, really? So if it doesn't touch their wires outside, they don't care?
Generally speaking, yes. Whatever happens on your side of the property line remains your private business, provided it never crosses back over to their infrastructure.
Okay, I understand the legal theory. But how can a dumb DIY kit physically guarantee zero export?
It's a valid question.
I mean, imagine a perfect cloudless spring day. My panels are operating at maximum efficiency, generating a full 800 watts.
Perfect production day.
However, the house is empty. The family is at work and school, the refrigerator compressor has cycled off, and all the lights are out.
So demand is very low.
Right. My home's baseline power consumption might drop to a mere 100 watts just to keep the Wi-Fi router and the microwave clock running.
Yes.
Where do those excess 700 watts go? If there is no active appliance inside the house to consume them, the laws of physics dictate they will flow backward through the utility meter and out to the street.
And then you're in violation.
Exactly.
Well, to prevent that inevitable overflow, modern plug-and-play kits incorporate a critical piece of hardware called a smart power meter.
A smart power meter.
The Craftstrom kit, for example, includes this separate, highly specialized monitoring module, and the homeowner must install this module directly inside the home's main electrical breaker panel.
Okay, I have to throw a red flag on the play here.
I figured you might.
You just said install it directly inside the main electrical breaker panel. For the average consumer, opening the main panel sounds incredibly intimidating.
It does sound scary.
It sounds exactly like the kind of task that legally requires a licensed electrician and a municipal permit.
It sounds invasive, but the installation process is actually remarkably non-intrusive.
Really?
Yes. The homeowner does not need to unscrew any live terminals, splice dangerous high-voltage wires, or even interrupt the power supply.
Then how does it read the power?
The smart meter utilizes hardware known as current sensing clamps. These are small, hinged magnetic rings designed to simply snap around the thick, insulated main power lines feeding into the house from the utility meter.
Ah, I see. Okay. It functions similarly to a medical pulse oximeter that clips onto a patient's fingertip.
That's a perfect comparison.
It reads the heart rate and oxygen levels through the skin without requiring a needle to cap directly into a vein.
That is an excellent visualization. The current sensing clamps operate on the principle of electromagnetic induction.
So they just read the field around the wire.
Exactly. They passively read the electromagnetic field expanding and collapsing around the insulated wire. And from that, they calculate the precise flow, amperage, and direction of the alternating current.
That's wild.
So the smart meter sits inside the panel, quietly observing the home's total aggregate energy consumption in real time, down to a resolution of a single watt.
It acts as the all-seeing eyes of the operation. It knows the exact millisecond the air conditioning compressor kicks on or when the television is turned off.
And crucially, it maintains a continuous wireless communication link with the microinverters located outside.
Okay, so returning to my scenario. If the smart meter observes that the house is only consuming 100 watts,
Right.
but it knows the solar panels are currently capable of producing 800 watts, it transmits an instantaneous command to the microinverters.
It instructs them to artificially throttle their output.
So the inverters respond by electronically capping their production at, what, exactly 100 watts?
Actually, usually exactly 99 watts.
99 watts. Oh, so it intentionally leaves a tiny buffer.
Yes. The system is dynamically riding the curve of the home's consumption. It generates just enough power to offset the active usage, but intentionally leaves that tiny 1-watt buffer.
By ensuring the house is always technically pulling a microscopic amount of power from the grid, it mathematically guarantees that zero power ever has the opportunity to leak backward through the utility meter.
It is a masterful application of dynamic throttling.
That is incredibly smart.
It completely neutralizes the need for complex utility interconnection agreements. Because from the utility company's vantage point on the other side of the meter, You haven't installed a power plant.
You just appear to be a household that has suddenly become incredibly, astonishingly energy efficient.
Exactly. You just stopped buying as much power.
It is a brilliant regulatory loophole. But what if a homeowner wants to aggressively scale up?
Like really push the limits.
Yeah. What if I look at my massive, sun-drenched backyard and decide that a tiny 800-watt kit just isn't going to cut it? I want to deploy 10,000 watts of plug-in solar to wipe out my massive summer air conditioning bill.
Which is very tempting.
The source material references specific, localized legal restrictions regarding scaling. They use Utah state law as a primary example, noting that Utah caps the backfeed of unpermitted plug-in solar systems at a strict 1,200 watts.
Yes. Many states and local municipalities have enacted similar, seemingly arbitrary limits for unpermitted systems.
Why do they care if it's unpermitted?
Their primary concern is protecting the neighborhood infrastructure. They do not want massive amounts of unpredictable, unmanaged solar energy flooding into local utility pole transformers and causing grid instability.
Okay, so if I live in Utah and I am determined to build a massive 10,000-watt DIY array, does that 1,200-watt legal limit completely crush my plans?
Not at all. In fact, if we connect this to the bigger picture and examine the broader implications of smart meter technology, it reveals a perfectly legal, highly effective strategy to scale up massively while remaining fully compliant with state law.
Okay, I am very interested in hearing how this loophole operates. Walk me through the mechanics of scaling up while dodging the export cap.
The crucial distinction lies in the exact wording of the regulation. The law stipulates that a homeowner cannot export more than 1,200 watts to the grid.
Export.
Right. It does not dictate, restrict, or limit how much total energy you are allowed to generate for your own internal behind-the-meter consumption.
Ah, I see the distinction.
Let us imagine you live in a large home with heavy energy demands. Multiple central air conditioning units, a running pool pump, electric vehicles charging in the garage.
A huge power draw.
During the peak heat of the day, your house might regularly consume a massive 7,000 watts of continuous power.
A heavy, sustained daytime electrical load.
Under those conditions, you could legally construct a massive 10,000-watt DIY solar array in your backyard.
But obviously, you would not attempt to plug a 10,000-watt system into a standard 120-volt patio outlet that would instantly melt the receptacle.
Good catch. Yes, you would need to provision a robust, dedicated 50-amp, 240-volt electrical circuit to handle that sheer volume of energy. But the underlying principle of zero export remains identical. You route this massive solar array through a heavy-duty, commercial-grade, zero-export gateway.
Similar to the Mango Power Smart Gateway detailed in the source documents.
Exactly.
So the gateway assumes the role of the traffic cop, but on a much larger scale, balancing the complex math on the fly.
Right. While your home is heavily drawing 7,000 watts, the Smart Gateway allows the solar array to unleash its full potential, pumping 7,000 watts directly into your main breaker panel.
Effectively zeroing out your utility usage and spinning your meter to a standstill.
But consider what happens when the thermostats hit their target temperature and all the air conditioning units suddenly shut off.
Demand plummets.
Your home's internal consumption drops from 7,000 watts down to a baseline of maybe 500 watts.
Okay.
The Smart Gateway registers this massive drop in demand instantly. It immediately sends a command to throttle the 10,000-watt solar array down to a maximum allowable output of 1,700 watts.
Wait, let me run that math. If the system is dynamically throttled to a total output of 1,700 watts, and the house is actively consuming 500 of those watts,
Follow the math.
that leaves a remainder of exactly 1,200 watts flowing backward through the meter and out to the municipal grid.
Yes.
Which keeps the homeowner perfectly mathematically compliant with the absolute maximum threshold of the Utah state limit.
It is a phenomenal implementation of smart hardware. You secure the immense financial benefit of a massive solar array capable of covering your most extreme peak daytime loads.
Yet you establish a mathematical guarantee that you will never violate the state's backfeed limit during periods of low household consumption.
You are effectively architecting a personalized, highly intelligent microgrid entirely on your side of the utility meter.
The level of control is just astounding. However, here's where it gets really interesting.
Go.
Because my inner engineer is flagging a hidden, incredibly frustrating electrical trap associated with scaling up these plug-and-play kits on standard American house wiring.
I think I know what you're referring to.
It is a nuanced technical hurdle that I believe almost every homeowner completely misses when they first start researching plug-in solar. It revolves around the fundamental architecture of our breaker panels. We need to dissect the 120-volt phase puzzle.
I agree completely. Failing to understand the split-phase architecture of North American homes is arguably the single biggest cause of disappointment and confusion for DIY solar enthusiasts.
They install a system expecting massive savings, only to find their utility bill barely
It
moves.
happens all the time.
Let's break down the underlying architecture. The average consumer assumes the electricity flowing from the street into their house is just one massive, homogeneous pool of power.
Just a big bucket of electrons.
Right. But the reality is quite different. The United States electrical grid delivers what is known as a split-phase power system to residential properties.
To understand this, you really have to look at the physical wires connecting a house to the utility pole. When you look up at the weatherhead on a typical American roof, you will see three distinct wires coming down from the street transformer.
3 wires.
Two of those are hot wires carrying live current, and the third is a neutral return wire.
Let's label the 2 hot wires line 1 and line 2. Each of these individual lines is carrying 120 volts of alternating current.
Right.
But here is the critical engineering trick that makes the entire system work. The alternating current on line 1 and the current on line 2 are perfectly, precisely 180 degrees out of phase with each other.
They represent completely opposite sine waves.
Exactly. When the voltage on line 1 is peaking at its absolute maximum positive value, the voltage on line 2 is simultaneously at its absolute maximum negative value.
That 180-degree phase difference is the foundational key to American residential power.
How so?
Because if you wire a standard household receptacle like the one you plug a lamp into, connecting it to just line 1 and the neutral wire, that appliance receives standard 120-volt power.
Normal wall plug.
If you wire a different receptacle connecting it to line 2 and the neutral, it also receives 120-volt power. But if you have a massive appliance that requires significantly more energy, you wire a specialized receptacle that connects across both line 1 and line 2 simultaneously, ignoring the neutral.
Ah, because the 2 lines are perfectly out of phase, the voltage differential compounds delivering a full 240 volts.
Yes, this is exactly how we power heavy, high-draw appliances like electric clothes dryers, kitchen ovens, or central air conditioning compressors.
Now, let's look inside the standard electrical breaker panel mounted in a garage or basement. The physical layout of the metal bus bars inside the panel is designed to alternate sequentially all the way down.
Like teeth on a zipper?
Yes. The top breaker slot connects to line 1. The slot immediately below it connects to line 2, then line 1 again, then line 2. Consequently, roughly half of the standard 120-volt outlets and lights in a house are randomly wired to line 1, while the other half are wired to line 2.
So, applying this architectural reality back to our DIY solar project, what happens when an excited homeowner takes their brand new 800-watt Craftstrom kit and simply plugs it into a standard, convenient wall outlet on their back patio?
That specific patio outlet is permanently hardwired to a single specific breaker inside the panel.
Right.
Let's assume, for the sake of this example, that the patio breaker happens to be seated on the line 1 bus bar.
Okay, it's on line 1.
When the sun hits the panels, the solar power flows backward into the panel, and it happily travels exclusively along line 1. It will successfully offset the power consumption of the kitchen refrigerator, the living room television, the hallway lights, and absolutely anything else that happens to be wired to line 1.
Consider the appliances wired to line 2.
The solar power will do absolutely nothing for them. The 2 lines are completely isolated pathways within the panel.
They don't mix.
Right. If the homeowner's home office containing a desktop computer, multiple monitors, and a window air conditioning unit running full blast is wired to line 2, the solar panels pumping power into line 1 will not offset a single watt of that office consumption.
The homeowner will still be purchasing 100% of the electricity required to run that office directly from the utility company, even while their solar panels are operating at maximum capacity in the blazing sunshine.
It results in a massive, highly frustrating electrical imbalance. A homeowner might check their smartphone app, see they are successfully generating 800 watts of free solar power, and feel thrilled.
But when the monthly utility bill arrives, they are shocked to see it is only decreased by half of what they projected, simply because they did not account for the split-phase distribution of their household loads.
The obvious question then becomes, how do we solve the phase puzzle? I'm not a licensed electrician, and I have absolutely no desire to open my main breaker panel, unscrew live wires, and attempt to manually move all my heavy-use breakers onto line 1 just to match my solar input.
That sounds incredibly dangerous.
And likely illegal without a permit.
Rewiring the panel is entirely unnecessary. The source documents outline two highly effective primary solutions for overcoming the phase puzzle, catering to different budgets and technical comfort levels.
Okay, let's hear them.
Option A represents the purest, simplest plug-and-play approach. Deploy two entirely separate solar arrays.
The brute force method. You simply buy two kits.
It is remarkably effective. Let us return to the scenario where a homeowner faces a 1,200-watt local export limit. The homeowner purchases a 600-watt solar kit and plugs it into a dedicated exterior circuit that they have explicitly verified is wired to line 1 in the breaker panel.
Okay.
Next, they purchase a second, independent 600-watt kit, set it up on the other side of the yard, and plug it into a different dedicated circuit that they have mapped and verified is wired to line 2.
It is an exceptionally elegant solution in its simplicity. You effectively blanket the entire electrical panel. By injecting dedicated solar power into both sides of the panel independently, it no longer matters which random appliance the family turns on.
Exactly. Whether it sits on line 1 or line 2, it'll be offset by the corresponding solar kit.
And crucially, because the combined total capacity of both kits is exactly 1,200 watts, the homeowner is still mathematically protected from violating the local export limit.
Option A is undeniably the most accessible method for a layperson. However, Option B is designed for the more advanced DIY enthusiast, who is prioritizing maximum overall system efficiency and future scalability.
What's option B?
Option B involves bypassing standard 120-volt outlets entirely and utilizing a DIY 240-volt plug-in system.
Oh, this aligns with the strategy the YouTube creator in the source material utilized when discussing scaling up their home system. Instead of relying on a standard 3-prong 120-volt outlet, the homeowner installs a massive, dedicated 50-amp, 240-volt receptacle on the exterior of the house.
Identical to the heavy-duty plugs used for powering large recreational vehicles or industrial welding equipment.
Right, and the underlying physics of a 240-volt receptacle solve the problem natively, because a 240-volt receptacle is physically wired to draw from both line 1 and line 2 simultaneously.
It spans the gap.
Therefore, if a homeowner upgrades to a heavy-duty, high-capacity microinverter specifically designed for 240-volt AC output and plugs that inverter into the 50-amp circuit, the system injects the generated solar power perfectly evenly across both legs of the breaker panel at the exact same millisecond.
Every single 120-volt appliance in the entire house, regardless of which specific breaker it is attached to, receives an equal share of the solar offset.
Furthermore, the massive 240-volt appliances, like the central air conditioning unit or the electric oven, also receive perfect balanced offset.
It eliminates the phase puzzle at the source of injection. The caveat, of course, is that it requires the upfront labor and expense of installing that heavy-duty 240-volt circuit.
Which undeniably steps slightly outside the highly marketed anyone can do it in 10 minutes appeal of the basic starter kits.
It does. It requires a bit more effort, but it's incredibly empowering to know that a clear, viable upgrade path exists.
It really is. Okay, so having thoroughly navigated the daily engineering challenges of phase balancing, current sensing clamps, and dynamic zero export, I need to shift my perspective back to my role as a parent concerned with emergency preparedness.
The blackout scenario again.
Exactly, because it is fantastic that I am saving money on a sunny Tuesday afternoon when the grid is functioning normally. But what happens when reality strikes?
Severe weather.
What happens when a severe hurricane makes landfall, or a freak winter freeze snaps the power lines, and the municipal grid goes black for 3 days? We established earlier that these microinverters feature a rapid shutdown safety mechanism.
Protect the lineman, yes.
When the grid goes dark, the inverters instantly shut down. Does that mean I am just sitting in a freezing house, staring out the window at $2,000 worth of completely useless solar panels? Is the system utterly worthless during an actual emergency?
The scenario you are describing is the single most frustrating realization for new solar owners across the country.
I can imagine.
It even applies to homeowners who have spent $40,000 on massive, professionally installed rooftop systems without battery backup. Standard grid-tied solar architecture is designed to go completely dead during a blackout.
That feels like a massive design flaw to the average consumer.
It does. However, because we are discussing a modular, physically accessible DIY system located on the ground or a patio, there are specific, highly effective off-grid hacks to legally and safely utilize your array during a total blackout.
Okay, I need you to walk me through this, because my first instinct, and I guarantee it is the first instinct of thousands of other homeowners in a panic, is this. I already own a heavy-duty portable battery bank.
like a Jackery or an Anchor.
Yeah, I have a massive Anker F3500 power station sitting in my garage for camping trips. It has standard AC wall outlets built right into the front panel.
Hmm.
During a blackout, can I just walk outside, unplug the solar kit from the wall of my dead house, carry the plug over to my portable battery, and plug it directly into the battery's AC output to charge it up?
I am incredibly relieved that you brought up that specific scenario, because the answer is an absolute, unequivocal NO.
Oh, wow. So don't do that.
You must never attempt that configuration under any circumstances.
I am sensing a catastrophic failure. Why is that so dangerous? It looks like a standard AC outlet.
Think back to the fundamental physics we discussed regarding how the microinverter operates. The microinverter's entire programmatic purpose is to detect a 60 Hz AC sine wave, synchronize its internal rhythm to that wave, and then forcefully push slightly higher voltage power upstream backward into the source of the sine wave.
Oh no. I see where this is going.
If you plug the grid-tied solar array into the AC outlet on the front panel of your portable battery, the microinverter will instantly wake up.
It thinks the grid is back.
It will detect the 60 Hz AC current being generated by the battery, and its programming will assume, excellent, the utility grid is back online. It will complete its boot sequence and aggressively blast 800 watts of high voltage power backward, directly into the delicate output circuitry of your portable battery.
And the output circuitry of a portable battery is designed strictly to let power out, not to accept a massive surge of high voltage power flowing in through the wrong door.
Exactly. The result would be an instantaneous massive blowout. You would completely fry the expensive internal inverter inside your battery station.
There goes a few $1,000s.
And more importantly, you run a significantly high risk of causing a catastrophic electrical fire right there in your garage.
Warning received loud and clear. Homeowners must never plug a grid-tied microinverter into the AC output of a battery. So what is the correct, safe bypass hack? How do I actually get the power from the panels into my battery so I can keep the refrigerator running and preserve the family's food supply?
The secret to the off-grid hack lies in physically bypassing the microinverter entirely.
Taking it out of the loop.
Exactly. Remember, during a blackout, the microinverter is dead. It is acting as an impenetrable roadblock. But the solar panels themselves are completely passive, analog components.
Right. They don't care if the grid is up or down.
They're just sitting in the sun, generating raw DC energy, waiting for a conductive path to send it down.
The panels are still full of potential energy.
To access that energy, the homeowner simply walks up to the back of the solar panels. The physical connection between the raw panels and the microinverter is made using standard universal MC4 connectors.
MC4 connectors.
These are robust, waterproof, black plastic clips used across the entire solar industry. The homeowner manually unclips the MC4 connectors, physically severing the live panels from the dead microinverters.
Okay, so you just unplug them.
Yes. Then, they take those MC4 cables carrying the raw power directly from the panels, attach a simple adapter cable, and plug them directly into the dedicated DC solar input port located on the back of their portable power station.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. You bypass the complex AC conversion process entirely. You feed the raw direct current from the panels straight into the battery's built-in charge controller.
Every modern portable power station, like the Anchor unit you mentioned, contains an internal, highly sophisticated charge controller, specifically designed to safely accept raw, fluctuating DC solar power.
So it knows exactly what to do with it.
By making this physical cable swap, you're effectively converting your grid-tied sister into a temporary, self-sustaining off-grid island. The panels safely charge the high-capacity battery, and you can then plug your critical appliances, the refrigerator, medical devices, emergency radios directly into the battery.
And when the crisis is over, like when you look out the window and see the streetlights flicker back on and you know the municipal grid is stable.
The reversal process is just as simple. You unplug the panels from the battery, snap the MC4 connectors back into the microinverters, plug the kit back into the wall outlet, and you instantly transition back to automatically offsetting your daily utility bill.
The physical transition takes less than 5 minutes, requires no special tools, and provides true emergency resilience without risking anyone's safety or destroying expensive equipment.
It's the best of both worlds.
I really appreciate how that frames this entire project. It is not just a static, one-time consumer electronics purchase. It is the foundation of a modular, scalable home power plant.
That's exactly how you should look at it.
A homeowner can start small with an entry-level 800-watt kit just to test the waters and offset their daily baseline usage. Later, they can invest in a portable battery for emergency blackout backup. Perhaps the following year, they upgrade to a smart gateway to enable massive scaling and overnight battery throttling. The modularity is key.
It grows with you.
But with all the physics, safety protocols, phase puzzles, and emergency hacks comprehensively covered, I have to firmly put on my businessman hat for the final evaluation.
Let's talk numbers.
What does this all mean for my wallet? We need a candid discussion about cost versus true value.
The financial breakdown is where the DIY plug-and-play methodology truly shines, but it requires the consumer to look past some initial sticker shock and evaluate the entire economic picture.
Let's address the price head-on. The source documents note that the entry-level 800-watt kit from Craftstrom sits right around the $2,000 mark.
That's the retail price, yes.
Now, I am familiar with the hardcore DIY solar forums. I can already hear the keyboard warriors furiously typing away, pointing out that $2,000 for 800 watts equates to roughly $2.50 per watt.
Which they will argue is too high.
Exactly. And if you go to a wholesale liquidator, you can buy bare, raw solar panels for as little as 50 cents a watt. From a strictly technical raw materials perspective, those farm users will argue aggressively that this kit is wildly overpriced.
And if the consumer is an experienced electrical engineer who genuinely enjoys sourcing disparate individual components from industrial liquidators, manually crimping high-voltage wires, custom programming raw charge controllers, and is willing to personally assume all legal and financial liability if a faulty connection causes a house fire, then yes, building a system entirely from scratch is cheaper.
But that's a very big if.
For 99% of average homeowners, that level of extreme DIY is simply not a viable, safe, or realistic option.
The consumer is paying a premium for curation and engineering.
They are paying for a holistic, pre-engineered, safety-certified solution. When you calculate the true value proposition of that $2,000 investment, you have to look comprehensively at what is included in the box.
You're not just buying bare photovoltaic cells.
You are acquiring highly efficient, semi-flexible bifacial panels. You are getting weather-resistant, adjustable metal racking systems. You are receiving advanced microinverters with built-in Wi-Fi communication and integrated rapid shutdown safety firmware.
And crucially, you are getting the proprietary smart power meter with current sensing clamps that enables the entire zero export legal loophole.
All designed to work perfectly together out of the box.
Beyond the hardware in the box, I have to factor in what I am not paying for. If I wanted to install a traditional, professionally managed 800-watt grid-tied system on my roof, the hard costs of the equipment are only a fraction of the total bill.
The labor alone is staggering.
I would have to pay a licensed electrician an hourly rate of $150 or more just to run the conduit and wire the panel. I would have to pay the city $300 or more for structural and electrical permits. I would have to pay the utility company application fees for an interconnection agreement.
And most significantly,
I would have to swallow the massive, bloated markups that professional rooftop solar installation companies have historically tacked on to pad their profit margins.
when you systematically factor in the avoided labor costs, the bypassed bureaucratic permitting fees, and the eliminated installer markups, the ROI, the return on investment of a plug-and-play kit, accelerates dramatically.
It really does change the math.
Furthermore, the homeowner can track their daily utility bill savings down to the exact penny via the free built-in smartphone app, providing real-time financial feedback.
Let's run a conservative hypothetical. If my $2,000 kit successfully offsets just $30 a month in electricity usage, that equates to $360 a year in hard savings. On a $2,000 initial investment, I am completely breaking even on the hardware in under 6 years. Considering these Tier 1 solar panels are typically warranted to produce usable power for 25 years, that represents a remarkably solid long-term business investment.
Beyond the strict mathematical ROI calculations, there is an intangible value proposition that is difficult to put a price tag on: peace of mind.
Peace of mind is priceless.
There is immense value in knowing you have deployed a self-contained power plant whose thermal management quirks, electrical tolerances, and safety certifications have already been rigorously engineered and tested by a reputable company before it ever reached your doorstep.
You don't have to lie awake at night wondering if your custom-crimped, uncertified wire is going to arc and burn your garage down.
Exactly. You are fundamentally buying accessibility. You are purchasing the ability to actively participate in the renewable energy transition without needing a master's degree in electrical engineering or taking out a second mortgage to finance a massive rooftop installation.
It democratizes power generation.
It absolutely does.
Well, as we look at the clock, it is time to start bringing this incredibly detailed deep dive in for a landing. We have covered a massive amount of ground today, learner. We unpacked the impossible physics of how microinverters artificially bump up voltage to push electricity upstream into your household grid.
We explored the rugged hardware from bifacial panels capturing ground reflection to the absolute necessity of microinverter redundancy.
We also thoroughly navigated the crucial safety mechanisms, detailing how rapid shutdown algorithms protect utility linemen during storms and how dynamic smart breakers prevent overloaded wires and catastrophic fire risks inside the home's shared circuits.
We solved the notoriously complex 120-volt split-phase puzzle, figuring out how to mathematically balance power across both electrical legs of a standard North American home, either through deploying dual arrays or upgrading to a dedicated 240-volt circuit.
We learned the critical, potentially life-saving emergency hack for bypassing dead microinverters during a blackout to charge a backup battery safely using raw DC power. And finally, we ran the hard numbers, proving that dodging electrician hourly fees and utility red tape makes the financial reality of DIY power not just viable, but a highly attractive long-term investment.
It represents a genuine paradigm shift in residential energy architecture. And as we conclude, this raises an important question. A broader systemic thought I'd like to leave the listener to mull over.
Let's hear the final thought.
We've spent this entire hour analyzing this technology from the perspective of the individual homeowner. We focused on saving $30 on your monthly bill. We focused on providing emergency backup power for your refrigerator.
Right.
But consider what happens when this technology scales adoption. What happens when it is not just you, but 10 houses on your street, 100 houses in your neighborhood, 1,000 houses in your city.
The compound effect.
If thousands of households begin quietly adopting these simple, affordable plug-and-play kits, armed with zero export smart meters that bypass the utility bureaucracy entirely, we are not just saving money individually.
We are actively organically transitioning the entire national power grid from a centralized, highly vulnerable monolith reliant on massive distant power plants and fragile transmission lines into a decentralized, highly resilient, neighborhood-level organism. We are effectively building a distributed swarm of microplants.
The implications are staggering. The question to ponder is, what happens to the traditional, deeply entrenched utility monopolies, whose entire lucrative business model relies on the premise that the consumer has absolutely no other option for baseline power when every single home can discreetly, legally, and safely power itself from a standard wall outlet?
That is a phenomenal, disruptive thought to end on. The next time you walk out to the mailbox, learner, and you pull out that envelope from the utility company with that ominous number printed at the bottom, maybe you don't have to feel quite so helpless or tethered to the monopoly anymore. Maybe the solution to fighting back has been sitting there the whole time, just waiting for you to plug it in. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you. Keep pushing for that deeper mastery of how things work. And maybe take a closer look at those sunny spots in your own backyard. We'll catch you on the next one.